My girlfriend texted, "Don't wait up. I'm with someone who gets me tonight." I replied, "Thanks for the closure." Then I forwarded this text to her conservative parents and arrived at her hotel room with them, and the drama exploded. I, 29M, never thought I'd be the type of guy to orchestrate a revenge plot, but life has a funny way of pushing you past your breaking point. What happened 3 weeks ago changed everything I thought I knew about relationships, trust, and the people closest to you. My girlfriend and I had been together for 2 years. We'd been talking about moving in together, maybe getting engaged next year. Her parents loved me. At least, I thought they did. They were the traditional, conservative type who went to church every Sunday and believed in old-fashioned values. They'd always been warm to me, inviting me to family dinners and treating me like the son they never had. The trouble started when she got promoted to regional manager at her marketing firm. The new position required frequent travel, and suddenly she was gone 3 or 4 nights a week. I tried to be supportive, understanding that this was important for her career. But something felt different. She became distant, distracted. Our conversations grew shorter, and she started avoiding my calls when she was out of town. Last month, she was scheduled for a 3-day business trip to Chicago. She told me she'd be staying at the Marriott downtown, working with the client development team. I wished her luck and told her I'd miss her. She barely looked up from her phone when she kissed me goodbye. The first red flag came that evening when I tried calling her around dinner time. It went straight to voicemail. I figured she was in meetings or at a business dinner, so I didn't think much of it. But when she didn't return my call by bedtime, I started feeling uneasy. The second night was worse. I called twice and got voicemail both times. When she finally texted me back, it was just a brief message saying she was exhausted and going to bed early. Something in my gut told me this wasn't right, but I pushed the feeling down. Trust was important in relationships, and I didn't want to be that controlling boyfriend who couldn't handle his girlfriend's career success. The third night, everything imploded. I was sitting on my couch, watching Netflix and waiting for her to call like she'd promised, when my phone buzzed with a text message. I expected it to be her saying goodnight, or maybe complaining about how late her meetings ran. Instead, I read the words that would haunt me for weeks. The message was short and brutal. "Don't wait up. I'm with someone who gets me tonight." I stared at the screen, reading the words over and over, hoping I'd misunderstood. But there was no misinterpreting that message. She wasn't at business meetings. She wasn't exhausted from work. She was with another man, and she was rubbing it in my face. My first impulse was to call her immediately and demand an explanation. But as I sat there, fury building in my chest, a different plan began forming in my mind. She wanted to play games? Fine. I could play games too. I typed back a simple response. "Thanks for the closure." Then I did something that would either be the most satisfying decision of my life or something I'd regret forever. I forwarded her text message to her mother. Her mom had given me her number months ago, insisting I should call if I ever needed anything. She'd always been protective of her daughter, but had welcomed me into their family with open arms. I knew she'd be mortified by what her daughter had done. My hands were shaking as I sent the screenshot along with a brief message explaining that her daughter was in Chicago, supposedly on business, but had apparently found other entertainment for the evening. I told her I was sorry she had to find out this way, but I thought she deserved to know what kind of person she'd raised. The response came faster than I expected. Her mother called me within 10 minutes, and I could hear the shock and anger in her voice. She told me she couldn't believe her daughter would behave this way, that this wasn't how she'd been raised. She asked if I knew which hotel she was staying at, and when I told her, she said she and her husband were driving to Chicago that night. I should have left it there. I should have let them handle it and moved on with my life. But the rage coursing through my veins demanded more immediate satisfaction. I wanted to see her face when her world came crashing down. I told her parents I'd meet them at the hotel. The drive to Chicago took 3 hours, and I spent every minute of it oscillating between excitement and dread. Part of me wondered if I was going too far, if this was crossing a line I couldn't uncross. But every time I started to doubt myself, I'd remember that text message and the casual cruelty in those words. I arrived at the Marriott around midnight and found her parents in the lobby. Her father looked like he'd aged 10 years since I'd last seen him. Her mother was pacing back and forth, her face a mask of disappointment and fury. They'd already gotten her room number from the front desk. Apparently, they told the clerk there was a family emergency. We took the elevator to the 14th floor in complete silence. The tension was suffocating. When we reached her room, her mother knocked firmly on the door and called her daughter's name. The silence that followed seemed to stretch forever. Then we heard movement inside, hushed voices, someone stumbling around. Her mother knocked again, louder this time, and identified herself. When the door finally opened, my girlfriend's face went through a series of emotions that I'll never forget. First confusion, then recognition, then absolute horror as she realized what was happening. She was wearing a hotel bathrobe, her hair disheveled, her makeup smeared. Behind her, I could see a man's silhouette quickly retreating toward the bathroom. Her mother pushed past her into the room, demanding to know what was going on. Her father followed, his face stone-cold with anger. I stayed in the doorway, watching the scene unfold like a car accident in slow motion. My girlfriend started stammering excuses, claiming it wasn't what it looked like, that she could explain everything. But her mother had already spotted the man's clothes scattered on the floor, the 2 wine glasses on the nightstand, the unmade bed that told the whole story. The man emerged from the bathroom, partially dressed and clearly mortified. He started apologizing profusely, saying he didn't know she had a boyfriend, that she'd told him she was single. That revelation hit like another punch to the gut. Not only had she been cheating, but she'd been lying about my very existence. Her father, normally the most soft-spoken man I'd ever met, unleashed a tirade that echoed through the hallway. He told her he was ashamed to call her his daughter, that this wasn't how he'd raised her, that she'd disgraced their family name. Her mother was crying, asking how her daughter could be so selfish and heartless. My girlfriend kept trying to explain, to minimize what had happened, but every word she spoke just made things worse. She claimed it was just a moment of weakness, that she'd been drinking, that it didn't mean anything. When she tried to blame her actions on feeling trapped in our relationship, her father's face turned purple with rage. The other man, I learned his name was Marcus and he worked for the client company, grabbed his belongings and fled as quickly as possible. He apologized to me on his way out, saying he genuinely had no idea she was in a relationship. The look of disgust he gave her as he left spoke volumes about what he thought of her deception. The confrontation continued for another hour. Her parents alternated between yelling and disappointed silence. They told her they were canceling the family vacation they'd planned for next month, that she wasn't welcome at Sunday dinners until she figured out how to become a decent human being again. Her mother removed the family ring she'd been wearing, saying she didn't deserve to represent their family. Through it all, my girlfriend barely looked at me. When she finally did, there was no remorse in her eyes, only anger that I'd exposed her. She accused me of being vindictive, of involving her parents in something that should have stayed between us. She said I'd ruined her relationship with her family over one mistake. I finally spoke up, telling her that forwarding one text message hadn't ruined anything. Her own actions had done that. I reminded her that she'd chosen to send that cruel message, chosen to cheat, chosen to lie about my existence to her affair partner. All I'd done was make sure the people who cared about her knew the truth about who she really was. Her parents left first, telling her they needed time to process everything and that she shouldn't contact them until she was ready to take full responsibility for her choices. Her father shook my hand and apologized for his daughter's behavior. Her mother hugged me and told me I deserved better. After they left, my girlfriend and I stood alone in her hotel room for the first time in months. The silence was deafening. She tried one more time to salvage something from the wreckage, suggesting we could work through this, that everyone makes mistakes. I looked at her, really looked at her, and realized I was seeing her clearly for the first time. The woman I'd planned to marry, the woman I'd trusted with my heart, had shown me exactly who she was. And I finally believed her. I told her we were done, that I'd pack up her things from my apartment and leave them with a mutual friend. I wished her luck with her new life and walked out. Update 1. The aftermath has been both worse and better than I expected. Word spread quickly through our friend group about what happened. Most people have been supportive of me, though a few think I went too far by involving her parents. I don't regret it for a second. She tried calling me dozens of times in the days following the hotel incident, but I didn't answer. She sent long text messages apologizing and begging for another chance, claiming she'd made a terrible mistake and wanted to make things right. I blocked her number after the 5th message. What surprised me was how quickly the truth about her behavior came out once people started talking. 2 of our mutual friends came forward and told me they'd suspected something was going on for months. One of them had seen her at a restaurant with Marcus during a previous business trip, but hadn't wanted to get involved. Another had overheard her on the phone having what sounded like an intimate conversation while she was supposed to be in meetings. I learned that her affair had been going on for at least 2 months, maybe longer. Marcus worked for one of her client companies, and they'd been using business trips as cover for their relationship. She'd been systematically lying to me about her whereabouts, her activities, and her feelings. Her relationship with her parents has remained strained. From what I've heard through mutual acquaintances, they're speaking again, but things are far from normal. They've made it clear that their trust in her has been broken and that it will take time to rebuild. The most validating moment came 2 weeks after the hotel confrontation. Her younger sister reached out to me and apologized for her sister's behavior. She told me their parents were devastated, but that they didn't blame me for exposing the truth. She also mentioned that this wasn't the first time her sister had cheated in relationships, just the first time she'd been caught so publicly. Update 2. It's been 3 weeks now, and I'm starting to feel like myself again. The initial anger has faded into something more like relief. I dodged a bullet by finding out her true character before we got married or moved in together. My ex-girlfriend has apparently started dating Marcus officially, which confirms that their relationship was much more serious than a moment of weakness. They're being very public about it on social media, which tells me she feels no real remorse about what happened. It also validates my decision to end things cleanly rather than trying to work through her betrayal. I've started therapy to work through the trust issues this experience has created. My therapist has helped me understand that what I did, forwarding that text to her parents, wasn't necessarily about revenge. It was about refusing to protect someone who had betrayed me and making sure that the people who loved her knew the truth about her actions. The hardest part has been losing the relationship I thought I had with her family. Her parents were like a second family to me, and I miss that connection. But I understand that maintaining a relationship with them would be complicated and potentially painful for everyone involved. Some people in my life have criticized my actions, saying I should have handled things more maturely. They argue that involving her parents was unnecessarily cruel and that I should have confronted her privately first. I understand their perspective, but I don't agree with it. She had already made the choice to publicly humiliate me with that text message. She could have broken up with me respectfully or cheated discreetly, or at least had the decency to end our relationship before starting a new one. Instead, she chose cruelty. She chose to make me complicit in her deception by forcing me to wait up while she was with another man. In my mind, someone who makes that choice forfeits their right to control how the truth comes out. I didn't create the situation. I just refused to help her hide it. Update 3. 2 months have passed, and I can honestly say I'm grateful this happened when it did. I've started dating again, slowly and carefully, and I've learned to spot red flags that I missed before. The experience taught me that trust isn't just about believing someone won't cheat. It's about believing they'll handle conflict, disappointment, and temptation with integrity. My ex-girlfriend's relationship with Marcus apparently didn't last long. According to mutual friends, he broke things off when he realized she was still trying to contact me and hadn't been honest with him about the timeline of their relationship. Turns out that discovering someone is willing to cheat and lie makes you question their trustworthiness in your own relationship. Who would have thought? She's tried reaching out a few more times through mutual friends, claiming she's learned from her mistakes and wants to apologize properly. I'm not interested. Some bridges, once burned, shouldn't be rebuilt. The most surprising development came last month when her mother contacted me. She asked if we could meet for coffee, and despite my reservations, I agreed. She apologized again for her daughter's behavior and thanked me for treating their family with honesty even when it was difficult. She told me that the hotel incident, while painful, had opened their eyes to patterns of behavior they'd been willfully ignoring for years. Her daughter had always been manipulative and selfish, but they'd made excuses for her because they loved her. Seeing her cruelty toward me had forced them to confront the reality of who she'd become. Her mother also told me something that put everything into perspective. She said that in the weeks following the hotel confrontation, her daughter had shown no real remorse for hurting me. She'd been upset about the consequences, the family drama, the social embarrassment, the end of our relationship, but not about the actual betrayal. That lack of empathy had been what really disappointed her parents. I realized then that my instinct to involve her parents hadn't been about revenge at all. It had been about refusing to enable someone who was hurting people and felt entitled to do so without consequences. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone is to stop protecting them from the results of their own choices. Looking back, I'm proud of how I handled the situation. I didn't stoop to her level by cheating or lying in return. I didn't try to destroy her reputation or sabotage her career. I simply made sure that the people who cared about her knew the truth about what she was doing. The text message she sent that night was meant to hurt me, to make me feel small and replaceable. Instead, it became the evidence of her character that everyone needed to see. She handed me the rope, and I just chose not to help her hide what she was doing with it. I've learned that sometimes the best revenge isn't plotting elaborate payback schemes. Sometimes it's just refusing to be complicit in someone else's cruelty and letting their own actions speak for themselves. 3 months later, I can honestly say I'm happier than I've been in years. I'm building a life based on honesty and mutual respect, and I'll never again settle for someone who thinks love is a game to be played rather than a commitment to be honored. The hotel room confrontation was messy, dramatic, and probably not how relationship experts would recommend handling infidelity. But it was honest, it was immediate, and it gave everyone involved a crystal clear picture of who was really who in that situation. And sometimes, that's exactly what everyone needs to see. If you like this video, please subscribe our channel to know what happened further in his life, and please click on the hype button.